Well, it is 4 o'clock according to that clock. So the July 19th meeting of the Port Authority will come to order. And we will start out with approval of the meeting minutes from June 21st and a very special meeting led by Bridget on July 6th. So does anyone have any comments, concerns, questions, or would anyone like to offer said motion? Brent is offering to approve the minutes from the 21st and July 6th.
I'll second.
Seconded by Caroline. Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That carries. Thank you very much. Now for the fun part, the downtown Riverfront bond discussion with Bill Sunmore.
All right, thank you. Yeah, in your packet, I put a memo together explaining this bond issue, and we talked about it a little bit at our last Port Authority meeting. But I'm requesting you as the Port Authority to request the City Council to pass an ordinance to authorize you to bond for the downtown Riverfront improvements. Again, these will be done in 2 phases. Of course, we're currently under the first phase on the west block. The next phase, directly behind City Hall, would then come in a subsequent year. I put in here a little bit of a summary for the total project for Phase 1 and Phase 2 for costs. So a total of about $6.8 million. You can see how that is broke down. We went through in prior meetings, probably more so with the City Council, but the breakdown of other funding sources, we have state bonding dollars of $1.75 million. We have some private donations to come in as well. Coming down to a net need for Phase 1 of just over $2 million and just over $1 million for Phase 2. Now, a point to note is that on Phase 2, the city has also put in a request for next year's legislative session for a $1 million ask for the state bonding. The hopes would be that we would get that and we wouldn't need to bond for that. But the reason I put $3 million in this entire package is to just cover both phases, so we only do this once. Now, if either the port or the city were to choose differently and just want to do Phase 2, of course, we can still make that happen, but it seemed most efficient to roll them together at the $3 million. Knowing that we plan to also buy that number down by transfers from our liquor store, we're looking at $400,000 for that. And using some of the American Rescue Plan funds, which you can spend on water and sewer infrastructure improvements. So we'd look at a portion of this project for that as well. Could be $200,000 to $300,000. So that's where I'm getting down to. The net of the bonds we would issue this year could be anywhere from 1.4 to 1.7 million. So you can see we're setting the max higher than that in case we don't get state bonding next year and we need to just do this process again in 2022. But my hope says to, maybe that $1.5 million would be the bond issue. But setting that ordinance with the City Council at $3 million tonight, that is on the City Council agenda as well at 5:30. I put there just a little bit here, what's coming next for the Port Authority on this. So August 16th, we'd actually be back in front of you authorizing the sale of the bonds. September 20th, we would actually have the bond sale and award of the bonds by the Port Authority. And then in October, around October 21st, we'd have the settlement of that and the proceeds coming in. So you can see we're going to have a lot constructed over here before we get the bond proceeds in. But the city is cash flowing this project through the Capital Project Fund. So I guess my request of you is to approve that resolution requesting the City of Fergus Falls to adopt an ordinance authorizing the issuance of bonds.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody have any questions?
No, I just want to thank you for presenting this to us at the last meeting, so we had time to think about it, and I think this is the way to go. I'd make that motion.
Good, thank you.
Rebecca made the motion. We have a second?
Second.
Brent had his finger up first. Sorry. Brent has the second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And that carries.
All right, thank you.
Bill. We appreciate
Stay
it.
tuned for the City Council meeting then for the
Okay.
next action.
I think I'll be there.
I
Okay,
think you will.
moving right along then, Progress Drive soil borings request. Sounds riveting.
Okay, so,
Boring, didn't
what's that?
it? I said it sounds riveting, not boring.
So Clara had the next few items in your packet, so I just got on the cell phone with her and kind of went through these. So I'm not fully versed, but maybe know enough here to hopefully walk us through it. So we're looking at a developer purchasing the properties on Progress Drive. So actually on the maps, I had one of those handy dandy pointers, but over on this side, those lots up there to the left of the cul-de-sac, correct, Joe?
Yes.
But part of contingency of that purchase agreement was having some soil borings completed, as well as an environmental study. Now, the developer wants to look at the environmental study, so they are working on that. But part of it for the Port Authority would have these soil borings done. We think they were probably done some years ago, but could not find documentation of that back when these were shovel-ready sites back under, I think, the old structure of what was considered shovel-ready. So we need to have that done. I see the total cost of $7,560, and it says it's not to an exceed amount, would be then the request of you tonight is to authorize entering into this contract with, if I look back on the heading, so Independent Testing Technologies for that 7560 not to exceed. And I know Clara will implement that and have these soil borings done so that developer can know what kind of site they're dealing with to construct on.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Just question. So administratively, is there a level that staff would just handle this versus coming back through us? I'm good with the review. I'm just curious.
As far as coming back after this, or had not even needed to
Having-
bring it to you?
Correct, yeah.
We probably could have. It is a small enough dollar amount, but
No,
it keeps, it's.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it. I
You
like
bet.
transparency, but I'm just curious. So,
And it's a good way to stay in the loop with where we're at in the process, so.
yeah, very much so.
All right, well, do we have,
I'll make a motion.
okay, we have a motion from Steve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second from Rebecca. Any more questions, comments, concerns? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. And that carries. Awesome. Thank you, Bill. I'd say you handled that admirably.
Thank
No
you.
surprise. Okay, then moving on, a dairy update with an MHP onsite meeting recap. You weren't there.
I was not there.
We were there.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So, Bridget, would you like to provide us with a recap? I forgot my notebook that day.
Should I start us off with what Claire and I talked about just a little bit, and you guys add to it because it's a small snippet of.
Take all the time you need.
But, so Clara was saying that we had the Minnesota Housing Partnership here to discuss, I think the county was involved in this as well, looking at doing a housing study for actually Otter Tail County and then the cities within, is what I understand. So they were on site, looked at the dairy, looking at the city in general, so this would be covering the city, not just the dairy site, would be my understanding. And then, of course, looking for your authorization that the Port Authority participates in this housing study, along with, she said City of Perham is participating, our local HRA is going to participate in this. It could be like up to a max of $3,000, it sounded, to kick in on this and participate with Otter Tail County on it. Sounds like a good thing, relatively inexpensive in my opinion, to have a housing study with, some emphasis to Fergus. It wouldn't be all Fergus Falls, but emphasis here in Fergus. So that's what I know about it. So that's up to you if you want to authorize that. And then if you have other things to offer that I'm not aware of, so.
So and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that Otter Tail County had asked for the $3,000 towards the greater study, but then we were maybe going to make a separate ask if there could be a more refined study done on Fergus. Wasn't that where we were at? I think.
Yes,
Okay.
yep,
And do we have any updates on that ask?
I don't.
Okay. Okay. Well then, we'll. So are we looking? We already approved that 3,000, didn't we?
No, I don't believe so.
So do we need a motion to do that? Caroline, you look like you might have a question.
Yeah, I do have a question. So if we are going, if there is a separate ask, are we involved with that, or are we just involved with the 3,000? And then I have another question once you answer that.
I was under the impression that we were, we had kind of agreed we were going to do the 3,000, and then she was going to get maybe a price. Claire was going to get a price on the second one, or the sub study, and we haven't gotten that yet. So we're just talking about that $3,000 one for now.
And when was the last time we did? Because we've had this one housing study that we've kind of been going off of. When was that done?
2015, I believe.
That sounds right.
Okay,
Okay, which is a little while ago. A
Yeah.
few things have changed. So
years go by fast.
yeah, they do. Okay, well, do we have a motion to approve spending or adding $3,000 from our pot to the greater study fund? And Jill, you can word it better than that. Won't be hard. Anyone want to make that motion? Okay.
So how specific, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
How specific will it be to what we want to get out of the dairy project? I guess that's what's unclear to me. I don't doubt it'll help. I'm just trying to figure out how much will it help.
The recollection that I have is that it's going to provide us with what types of housing are needed in the community,
In the county.
Countywide.
in the county, which would
Extrapolate to Fergus to some extent,
yeah.
but I'm wondering how specific to the dairy property. And I mean, we would use it anyway, probably, but I guess that's what I'm wondering. How defined is the scope of work?
That's a good
But I
question.
can't find, I thought we had something on it, but I can't.
There was some discussion about it at the meeting a month ago, but I don't.
Well, and I think the reason I paused was I'm trying to recollect why we were doing a separate one, whether it was timeliness, because Otter Tail counties would be many months out, and we wanted to do something Fergus specific and more quickly to know what we would be looking for in terms of housing at the dairy site. But I can't recall all the details of how much that separate one would cost, or where we're at with that process, or if that's necessary.
Sounds
I
like
think
we need
it's
a little
just
more
a little more
I
info.
was gonna
Yeah.
say, do we
Yep.
have time to table this then?
Yep.
I think Clara needs
I
to
think so.
be in the room
That makes
to
sense.
answer some questions, because in the minutes it says Claire's gonna put together the next steps for the port to take regarding the dairy. It would be helpful to have that.
Okay.
But I also don't wanna hold up,
Right.
Otter Tail County if
If
they're
they're-
wanting to get going. I guess I would support us supporting their study. But I think you're saying.
Yeah, I
you
would
want just
too.
a little more information.
I would too, just so we know what, our goal was to vet the master plan that said housing goes in there, right? And so how does this do that? Or maybe it's obvious that it does and we just pay the 3,000 but
Do we know the Otter Tail County timeline? Like, didn't they wanna have something going by October? Why does October stick in my head?
Do you remember, Jill, offhand? Because was this at a Port Authority meeting, probably the one I was gone?
Yes.
Well, Amy's
Amy was
presented,
first.
Amy Baldwin.
Okay.
and-
Yeah. No, I think we just need to. I think we just need to table it until Claire is here to answer those questions.
well, I mean, if we don't know, and if I don't want to get off schedule, so I mean, it's only $3,000, we'd benefit somewhat, I would think. So I mean, if we're not sure on the schedule, I'd rather just, I guess, approve it rather than hold somebody up. But that would be the expectation in the future, is we, have a pretty good scope of work, so we know where we're headed with it. And it's probably there, So,
yeah.
I just don't have it for you tonight.
yeah, no, that's
so-
okay.
Yep,
That's
yep.
good. So I could make a motion to approve it, and if somebody disagrees, that's fine. But I think that's where we got.
So we've got a motion to approve spending the $3,000 on the study, which, I think that having that study countywide would be a benefit to Fergus. I think
Yeah.
we'd get our $3,000 worth.
I think you're right.
Do we have, so all in favor of?
We need a
Need a
second.
second.
I'll
Oh,
second
apologize. Sorry. Yep. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. So that motion carries. Thank you, everyone. And let's see. Okay. Letters of intent for the purchase of port-owned properties.
Okay, and we have Ralph here tonight too. Do you want me to start us off, Ralph? Okay, so we have Jasmine Sunmore here from Aura, and so we can talk about that one first as it's in your packet, but Aura is giving you a letter of intent, looking at purchasing a parcel. I'll just step over to the map. Here's their current facility, so we'd be looking at this parcel above it. Is that correct? Just to the north of your facility, is that?
Yep.
Okay. And you can see in your letter, looking at an offer of $60,000, that would include special assessments. Of course, all of our parcels out within our industrial parks have special assessments on them, a balance of $16,800, bringing the net purchase price down to $43,200 for that. So certainly the ask would be, if you're interested in this letter of intent and would like to start moving towards a purchase agreement and working on that, and if you are not, then extending their option to purchase that, I believe it was 5 years. Is that correct? So I guess, do you have anything you want to add?
Just that with our growth in the last few years, we've pretty much already grown into our facility. At this point, I'm looking at some new markets, and we would need to probably elongate our building. But then we're gonna, then we'll sacrifice some of our finished goods storage areas. So this next lot would need to be developed for that. Looking even further into the future, if we needed to expand even more, that's where the new building would go. But just with the Carlton rail spur that's being talked about, I'm really looking at some new markets that I think would be really beneficial for me to go into, would generate a lot of tax dollars for the city and county and all that fun stuff, but we need this property to move forward.
Okay. All right. So the question in front of us then is do we want to accept the letter of intent? Is that right?
And then look at negotiating a purchase agreement. So that would probably be the next step. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Ralph?
I mean, we have the right, if you would like to close the meeting, to have a discussion that's outside of the public eye, but it's nice to have a letter of intent presented, so now it is in the public eye, that the public understands that this is something the port is considering, and the process requires us to have a further public hearing on this, and to, perhaps have a proposed purchase agreement that's in place, so that it can be discussed, and if anyone from the public wishes to come in and comment on it, they could. And we just can't sell property willy-nilly, we gotta jump through a couple hoops, but if the intent of the port is to work forward on this letter of intent and thinks the terms are reasonable and fair, we can work with, you can instruct me to work with Jasmine on the development of the purchase agreement.
Do we, is there a feeling either way and from the port as far as whether we should convene to adjourn to a closed session or whatever the word would be?
I guess from my perspective, I definitely want to help the development going forward. The question is the specifics and the terms and our role in that. I'd like to be able to discuss that,
Yeah,
confidentially to understand that.
yeah, I think so. I think that's fair.
But this would be just to accept a letter of intent, and then we do that in the session later.
So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
The terms, though, from what I understand from Ralph said, would be included in the letter of intent acceptance, correct?
Yeah, I mean, this would just be the essential terms.
The base terms.
The base terms, and there would be other things, I mean, that would possibly be included, relating to if there's gonna be title searches and that type of stuff, to ensure that we give good title and whatnot. There'll be other terms incorporated, which
Sure.
I would call standard, but the question is this, the base terms, what you're primarily concerned about are these the purchase price, and if that's acceptable, then
Right. Can those base terms change after we do an LOI? I guess that's my question.
Well, with a letter of intent, oftentimes a letter of intent will include, a part in here that would say, okay, city, do you accept it? And then we would sign it, and it could have, it's not a binding contract, but it's kind of just indicates the good faith effort that you would engage in, negotiating.
Right.
I mean, we're talking bare land, so I mean, there really isn't a whole lot to,
Yep.
be concerned about. But
In non-city business, I'm used to those changing as we need to, like you say, to negotiate, but what I'm not understanding, it's kind of similar to our discussion we've had before, where what's appropriate for us as a port to be accepting for base terms. I do not know that. And that's where I mean, I totally agree with moving forward with the LOI, but I'd like to talk about those base terms before we say, yeah, we should or we should
Yeah,
not.
I think it would be beneficial for us to have that conversation to, make sure at least everybody's on the same page and questions
I
have
think
been
so,
answered.
yeah.
Okay.
So then I think what you do is you go into closed session.
Okay.
For the purpose of considering the offer and how you want to move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we first discuss the other one in the public meeting and then go to the closed session?
You may.
Okay, yeah, so let's do that. Let's then move on to Michael J. Breen, and then we'll go into a closed session at the end here.
Okay, so that parcel is over on Progress Drive, up in the upper right-hand corner is the one we are looking at. So, and Michael Breen has made the offer to purchase that parcel for $10,000 with no contingencies, and then acknowledging that there are $35,216.84 of special assessments, that he would look at paying those over a 15-year schedule, and he says with a 0% interest. Now, I do know on those special assessments, there is an interest rate on there. That's, again, something you would talk about as you kind of work through just what we were talking about with the Aura example. So, and you can see there his intent to build a building and relocate, I believe, from Stanton. Is that correct, Jill?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
so there you go.
all right. Well, I would say that we would probably, we would adjourn to closed session to discuss both of those. So,
Before we go into closed session, I just want to point out, though, previously the Port Authority did enter into an agreement with Aurora on an exclusive option, and basically, so what I interpret this is that, yes, we would like to exercise our options that we entered into an agreement back in 2016. So I mean, the public should understand that
Sure.
that the Port Authority previously entered into a separate agreement with Aurora to give them this type of an option, and that expired on August 31st of 2021. So this is timely if they wanted to exercise the option.
okay,
I'm glad you brought that up, because
Yeah.
I should have said that at the beginning.
that's okay. We're a team. Teamwork. So,
There you
all
go.
right. So then, at this time, we will adjourn to the closed session. If everybody wants to get out.
Aura and Mr. Breen on developing a purchase offer. Looking at the terms kind of outlined on the documents that have been provided, and in particular with Aura, the documents that have been entered into previously. I do have one clarification question of you, Jasmine. Is the offer that you're making is considered a $60,000 offer, but you break it up between what's owed on the special assessments, and the difference is what you're offering to purchase the real estate for?
Correct,
And you intend on paying the special assessments at closing,
correct.
which would mean that there would be no interest charged on the special assessments moving forward. There aren't any, the numbers that you have received are the current amount on the special assessments, and once we transfer them, if that amount transferred over, then interest would accrue on those. But what you're saying is, I want to pay them at closing so that no interest accrues.
Correct.
Got it. So, you're instructing the city attorney to enter into, or to draft a proposed purchase agreement that will be reviewed by Aura and Mr. Breen and discussed, and that basically will outline the terms of their purchase offers.
So moved.
There'll be two separate motions, right? One for Aura, one for Green Company?
Yes,
Okay.
and then to set a public hearing date at your next Port Authority meeting for purposes of having the public hearing that we're required to have.
Okay, thank you, Rolf. So we have a motion on the table with all that stuff Rolf said for Aura. Second by Brent. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, that carries. And is there another motion? For,
Make that motion.
so, motion for what Rolf said on the green companies. Do we have a second?
Second.
Caroline? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That carries as well. Okay. With no further items of business, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you,
Yep, thank you.
Chair.
Yeah. Oh, great. That was a good meeting. Good discussion.